Hello, everybody. I've been sitting a lot today, and so I'm going to use 30 seconds of my precious time to ask you to turn to someone that you don't know next to you and just say hi very, very quickly. Let's build some community here. Real quick, real quick. Say hi to somebody you don't know. Please do it. It's okay, you can do it. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you. Most of the spaces I'm in are much more than one-way information, and so I just needed to do that, so thank you for putting up with it. So again, my name is Kit Miller. I have the good fortune of serving as the director of the Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence, an institution that was founded by Mr. Tushar Gandhi's remarkable parents, Sunanda and Arun Gandhi. We are located 6 miles north of here, 6 hours north of here, in Rochester, New York, on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people, the lands which still by federal treaty belong to that nation. And it's my privilege, as you just spoke to have our practices very much informed by the wisdom and the tremendous legacy of peace and survival of apocalypse that the Haudenosaunee people have been through not once but twice. So one of the things that we do with you is we actually bring them to some of the indigenous elders who can speak to that legacy and what that means. My question that I really want to address to you very briefly today is how are we going to ground youth in the years to come? How do we ground people in a time of tremendous change and uncertainty, of loss of, at times, of identity or regional connection, loss of species? How do we ground human beings? How do they become their best despite that? That's my question that I want to share with you today. And I hope my slides work because I want to let some pictures tell you the story. Our focus has very much been, over the last 10 years that I've been there, in the Rochester area because we have the distinction of having some of the worst rates of poverty in the United States. And so it felt like an important place for us to work deeply first. We didn't want to go a mile wide and an inch deep. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about some of the ideas that we've been working with over these years, because I loved hearing last year in Adrienne Marie Brown's remarkable book, Emergent Strategy, that answers do not have to be at the same scale as problems. And actually thinking that answers have to be at the same scale as problems is one of the things that holds us back. Does that make sense? So I'm going to talk about some small-scale solutions that I hope will inspire you, regardless of where you call home today. I'd love to show you the next picture. And this is the school that's just 4 minutes behind the Gandhi Institute in Rochester. It's a school with about a 98% poverty rate among the students. Our focus primarily is working with people between the ages of 12 and 24. And these are some 11 and 12-year-olds who have formed something called the Brain Committee. Their focus is on solving problems for the entire school. They meet with my colleagues, identify issues going on, and then identify solutions that are presented to the rest of the school. We know that kids, as you pointed out, Sasha, of all ages have remarkable ideas. And so one of our jobs as an institute is just to empower and get around. Most of the people that work with me are actually in their 20s. I'm just the old lady that runs around and tries to look for money for everything. We know that community is the nature, can I say this again? Community is the native climate of the human spirit. So everything we do, even just that last that moment of everyone saying hi to one another here, for me, this is the native climate of our spirit, is when we feel like we're in community with one another. We're trying to create opportunities to bring the full intelligence of human beings in creating face-to-face opportunities, especially doing circles and using practices related to restorative justice. Restorative justice can be used for everything from education and problem solving to conflict resolution, to grieving and mourning, as we've needed to do a couple of times for school. We haven't had the massive school shootings that have become too common in the United States. Well, we have had some terrible times in our community, and we've been able to use circles to bring children together for all of us to learn and grieve and grow with one another. Show the next slide. This was something that just took place this past Sunday, and this was actually one of our adult groups, and we were actually getting together in a very multicultural group to talk about the topic of hatred, having people really look at that and trying to understand that. So we're trying to bring people together across all kinds of boundaries, all kinds of margins. What can we do in facing one another in interactive, experiential spaces to be able to bring new ideas together? Next slide, please. Another important piece of the work and the training that we do, in the last 3 years, we've worked with about 18,000 youth and adults in the area. In addition to culturally informed conflict transformation modeling, which we use, which pulls on traditions of restorative practices and nonviolent communication, we're also increasingly bringing in systems tools like the one you see behind me right now. Systems thinking can be taught to people of all ages, and it's a critical skill because most of the outcomes that we're struggling with right now are unintended consequences of systems. Many of them are intended consequences. Many of our systems in this country, for instance, were set up to preferentially support the advancement of white people. So some of the outcomes that we have now as a nation are very much intended, but some of them are not. So we think it's critical, whether you're someone who is not served by systems, or maybe you're served by the systems, but you just literally are blinded by your own privilege. So we're including systems thinking into all of our education at every level. Next slide, please. Oh, by the way, pretend the iceberg is still up there. I love this quote from an educator I learned from several years ago in the San Francisco Bay Area. He said, simple answers to complex problems make problems worse. Simple answers to complex problems make problems worse. And I submit that too much of the political rhetoric in this country and right in the neighborhood actually here lately is advancing simple problems that are making our complex problems worse. So systems thinking is important. I also want to put in a word for the importance to access to beauty and nature and understanding where our food comes from, especially for children who are systemically deprived of access to beauty and nature and understanding. So these are some of the kids who work. We have an acre garden at the Gandhi Institute. We share food with our immediate neighbors. Tomorrow's Thursday, so tomorrow we'll be delivering food, especially to some of the senior citizens around us. And the young kids in the neighborhood are involved with that, and then they get to take food home. Food is important for building community. Last slide. So I've been talking about very grassroots work, and but I want to speak about a different kind of project that we took on a year and a half ago with the help of the Public Foundation in Atlanta and the Newman's Own Foundation. We wanted to recognize how much time young people especially, but all of us spend on our phones. Pretend I have a phone in my hand right now, please. And we also were realizing that too many young people were getting swept up into extremist work and extremist thinking, both in this country and elsewhere, because of the recruitment that was taking place online. And some of you may have read that there's a specific recruitment strategies that extremist groups use in online spaces to get young people engaged. And we felt that it was unfair that we were leaving vulnerable young people alone in those spaces online. So we created a project called Nonviolence Now, and we were able to put ads out in about 4 million impressions actually through this grant. We put ads in spaces where violent video games were played. We put ads in spaces where weapons are marketed. We asked to put ads on pornography sites and they wouldn't let us do it. We're trying to put nonviolence in spaces online where too often the lowest common denominator of humanity predominates. And so we're working on that now, and I hope very soon you're going to see somewhere on your phone this Nonviolence Now project. But one of the outcomes that we had from the project was we ended up creating a nonviolence news service, which is what you see behind you right now, because when we were doing research on the project, we found literally dozens of stories every week about the use of nonviolence globally. And we know how important it is to teach young people and people of all ages around how powerful and important strategic nonviolence can be. That everything from the climate strikes and other things that we've been seeing shows that young people know how to engage with that. We also know how vulnerable journalists are, and it's very meaningful to be here with this particular group of people, given the recent publicity about how difficult it is globally to be a journalist, and how much responsibility this country now currently has for making it more dangerous for journalists globally. So I'm excited about the idea of advancing strategic nonviolence for young people, because they're going to learn in that way why it's critical that a free press is part of every one of our global societies. Thank you again.